dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
I feel the time has come, Bryce, that we weigh in on what I'm sure is a very established, settled debate.
Okay.
But it is also one that I assume you, as non-Doctor Who watchers, are not privy to.
Okay.
So I'm sure our audience is clamoring to know our answer to the question that we're starting this show off with today. Is actor Matt Smith attractive?
Here's my controversial take. He's weird attractive, which is apparently in right now. Like, there's a lot of people that are saying that Timothée Chalamet is like that weird attractive. Matt Smith, I definitely think is. I made the joke that he's hot as in, like, if you told me there was incest in his family, like, I'd believe it, because there's a couple scenes in this episode where I'm like, he doesn't look that good, but then there's other episodes I'm like, he looks fabulous.
First thing, I love how every time I hear you pronounce Timothée Chalamet's name, it's different.
Yep.
If I might, I'll cut this out if you want, but the first time that Bryce made reference to dear Timothée Chalamet, he referred to him as Tim Chamlet. So, it's all relative. We've made some improvements here. Anyway, but you're absolutely right in that, like, it's separate from ugly hot, which is another thing that I think is sort of fading, but was in for a minute.
Yes.
Where it's unusual attractive.
Yes.
I feel like Benedict Cumberbatch has been sort of leading the charge there for a while.
No, I definitely get the appeal. Like, I would not say that he is an ugly man, but at the same time, he's definitely odd looking. And I think I made the mention to someone when they casted Matt Smith as a Targaryen. I feel like it fits because he looks like somebody who has
He looks like the best case scenario product of incest.
Yes.
Matt Smith, if you're listening to this podcast, we love what you're doing. We have agreed he's top 2.
He's top 2. He's top 2 for me, at least.
Anyway, I think he's hot. I'm not going to say he's the hottest guy in the show, though, which I feel like is the follow-up question.
No. I think we need to get a couple more episodes in, because Sir Cristen Cole, like, his actor, he's pretty hot.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be my go-to. Or, we've already spoken on it, but the whole look the do-up for Corlys is unbelievable.
We can't we can't get ahead of ourselves, Austin.
Okay.
Well, on that note, welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie podcast. My name is Bryce Wilson. I am joined here by my longest and oldest and dearest friend, Austin Snyder, who gave us the question as old as time: is Matt Smith hot? Which I think we broke it down partially. Austin, what are we doing this week?
Well, today we are doing the same thing that we do every week. We are talking dragons.
Awesome.
But in particular, we are re-entering the studio apartment of the dragon to discuss Season 1, Episode 3 of House of the Dragon.
What was Episode 3's episode name?
Right. Second of his name.
Excellent. Well, we'll just dive right on in with the first scene where we're getting House Valyrian versus the Crab Feeder.
Indeed.
I know that we mentioned it a little bit, but just how they shot this first scene, I thought was incredible. Just like the lighting was a little dark, but it was dark in all the right ways. The Crab Feeder was nailing a guy in. It was brutal. It was gritty. You could see the blood seeping through as the guy is getting essentially crucified in the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm a sucker for anything like nautical adjacent. So I loved it, the set design, because they're like looting some ships that they have taken down.
Yes, they're over there. They're clearly like getting from the ships that they've taken that are the Valyrian ships at this point. They're in full conflict. And it doesn't look like it's been a clean war, if there is such a thing.
And then we witness the crab feeder.
Yes.
In his namesake, the act for which he has been named, nailing a one of either Corlys or Daemon or what one of the good guys. He's nailing one of the good old boys to a stake.
One of the Westerosi boys.
Yes, and the crabs are already on this guy. I think they have been properly trained by this crab feeder fellow.
Here's my thing. I have no evidence to support this, but I think he just has some crabs on him at all times, and he's just like, "There you go, my little darlings.
Yeah.
There you go. Meat's back on the menu, boys."
You see, that's what it's actually all really about for this guy. And we can put this on because we get nothing about this character.
He's apparently a prince.
Oh, I guess that is the one piece of information, is that he is revealed to be Krahas Drahar. Drahar? We're great with pronunciations. Pronunciations on this show.
And I'll be straightforward. I'm not even going to pretend to understand what he's a prince. Like, I know he's a prince across the ocean. Like, I know he's from Essos. I think it's called Essos. But I know nothing about him other than he is a prince who's attacking Westeros and is raiding. And I did see somebody point out he's wearing a mask that's very similar to one of the masks of the Children of the Harpy in a Game of Thrones. Like, it looks like it's like a cracked version of that.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going on there. And also, if he's a prince, I thought it could have got something a little more custom, maybe cover up a little of the chin situation there.
See, I feel like they did a really good job building him up, because I thought he was going to be a lot bigger of a deal in my first watch through. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but he ended up not being
naked. I think it was actually just the right amount to keep us in suspense there.
Yes.
Without them wasting time on a character that was going to die in episode 3.
For sure. I completely agree. But at our 5-minute and 7-second mark, we see one of the most epic dragon moments, but you see Caraxes just form out of the shadows. He almost like lights up Godzilla-esque. Like, I know you referred to Jurassic Park with how like the T-Rex out of the darkness.
Well, that's the thing, is because everybody considers the T-Rex, the first scene with the T-Rex in the first Jurassic Park movie, as like peak CGI. Yes. At least, or maybe rather like the first moment where like a creature of that scale was truly sold. It's
yes.
like, that is a dinosaur that I am witnessing on screen. And the first lesson that I wish more studios would take from that is that it's one CGI element within a otherwise entirely practical scene.
Yeah.
But the other elements that makes that particular scene work really, really well is that it is set at night in such a low light scenario, yes. Which is why this scene of Caraxes looks kind of amazing. Like, yes. The CGI of the dragons in this show is obviously top notch as far as CGI dragons go.
Yes.
But I feel like this is probably the best that any of them have looked in the show so far.
Oh, just the way he just came out of the mist. He started getting ready to hurl fire. It was a very epic look. And I mean, he's
just kicking ass there.
Yeah, he's taking names, kicking ass. And
we totally glossed over how the guy that's getting staked gets stomped by Caraxes.
In our defense, he appears out of the mist before he stomps out. Because the guy's like, Daemon, you're here. Thank you, Daemon. Save me. And it splatters.
Yeah. How embarrassing. But it didn't even like seem to register to either of them.
No, I mean, like we've mentioned, Caraxes is a creature of war. Like, I don't think he just kills naturally. And I don't even think at this point he registers killing anything other. Like, it's very much showing that he is a violent creature. But it does show a little bit of what the crab feeder strategy has been. It's been more of like the guerrilla warfare type where they go out, they attack in short bursts, and then they go running back into the caves where they can't really...
Where the dragons aren't effective.
Yes.
Which a part of me is like, I mean, you just get your dragons up there and like, with everything they got, they do as much fire down the hatch.
For sure.
But I'll just assume, for the integrity of the story, that wouldn't have worked. That it's probably a vast array of caves that they are retreating into.
Oh, for sure. And imagine, like, I'm almost thinking, like, you could essentially, if a dragon was right there, you could just have somebody waiting just to, like, skewer.
Fair.
Right?
Fair.
Like some little cubby holes, like, more likely than not, they die right off the bat. But I'm sure that these guys have some... Like, and I also have some criticisms of what the Valyrians and Daemon's armies are doing when fighting, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I did also want to point out, I mentioned it back in episode 1 that you could see the relationship between Daemon and Caraxes. I feel like this episode really solidified that relationship some more because, like, when the arrows started getting fired, I didn't see Daemon make any moves, but it seemed like Caraxes like started to raise its wing up to protect Daemon. And you didn't see Caraxes scream out in pain until Daemon got shot.
I noticed that as well, which indicates something that I don't think has actually been commented on in the show, but has sort of been hinted at, that there's like a psychic connection between dragon and rider.
Yes, like I don't know if there really has been, like, again, I'm not sure if that's been confirmed by anything. I know that there's definitely things that allude to it, but you definitely see that relationship between Daemon and Caraxes, which, again, doesn't really say too much for our top 2 favorite boy over here, like in our defending him camp, but especially because we're over here like Caraxes is a heartless, soulless creature.
He's the negative influence in the relationship, which is really saying something.
What if Damon's the negative influence in this relationship?
Maybe. I mean, we don't know the true bond between dragon and rider. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors.
No, but
just reading it, man, this is an evil dragon.
He is an evil dragon.
He just reads so wicked, and he kills like 100 people just so casually in this opening scene.
Yeah, no problem. Doesn't even blink. Is there anything that we want to highlight there?
Just that there's one really cool like underbelly shot in this opening of Caraxes that really shows off like his movement pattern and like his kind of like worm-like slither almost.
Yes.
That I quite enjoyed. I felt like we should take note of as the Dragon Movie podcast we are.
I get the sense that they were trying to make the 3 dragons very similar to each other in A Game of Thrones, because you could argue that they were all siblings or maybe came from the same like hatch.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they're all different, but I really love that they're making an effort to have different looking dragons. Like, it's not just the color, but it's the aesthetic, even down to like the very body type of it. Even though they all generally have the 2 wings, the 2 back legs, and they breathe fire. Like, that seems to be like the consistent that they're keeping, but everything else is like almost fair game to be doing.
Yeah, more on that later. I want to get into that in our the breakdown at the end of this episode.
As do I. The second scene is a feast that the king is having to celebrate Aegon's second name day. where everyone's doting over Aegon.
This being his 2-year-old son with Lady Alicent, which at this point indicates that there has been roughly a 3-year time jump.
Yes.
From the last episode to this.
Yes.
She not only, I mean, they got the 2-year-old and then another bun in the oven. Alicent is very pregnant in this scene.
Yes.
And that seems to be the situation.
I do want to talk on the significance of him being named Aegon II later on, but it is worth noting he is Aegon II, named after Aegon the Conqueror, who did come to Westeros, the first king of Westeros.
It's an ambitious name.
It's an ambitious name, but I have thoughts on it that I do want to talk about it. The thing that just kept coming to me, and I know I'm going to keep saying this throughout the episode because I really feel like this is the episode where it really comes up, is the king is just surrounded by lickspittles. Like, he's surrounded by bootlickers. He's surrounded by people that are going to be just riding him like crazy, telling him everything he wants to hear, but they're talking mad shit behind his back. Like, they're all people that are just trying to get in good grace with him. And again, I understand that's what you do, but they're over the top. They're like, oh, he has your eyes, your grace. Oh, he has your hair, your grace. Like, I was literally almost vomiting at some points. Like,
well, so then that means that the new master of ships, that being Tyland Lannister, was sort of coming to your rescue there.
Yes. Tylet or Tylet?
Well, I put Thailand, but
T. Lannister.
I you know, here's this episode's notable first. This is the first podcast that we were recording where I am very sleep deprived. So maybe I should have said that up top. I'm good to go. I'm ready for the pod, but just maybe brace yourself for a little weirdness, a little wackiness, and a little extra punchy.
One of us.
We're podcasting fast and loose here today.
Yes. Well, there's a Lannister who's been named Master of Ships, which
was Corlys's position.
Which was Corlys's position before he took a sabbatical.
Yeah.
I also do want to point out the conversation that the high towers were having. Because Otto is talking with his older brother being the Lord of Hightower, and
that's Hobart.
Hobart. He looks like a Hobart.
And you mean that with all the malice that it could possibly entail.
I hate the high towers. Like, I genuinely hate the high towers.
What if it's Alicent is the most earnest, honest, sweetest character?
She's a Targaryen now. She's not a high tower.
Not by blood.
But Otto and his brother his brother oozes all of that, like, entitledness, but none of that cleverness to me.
He doesn't have the tact that Otto has.
No, and throughout it, I'm like, somebody ought to shoot that bitch. Like, the stuff that he said, we'll get into it, but he's like over there, like, you should press him. Like, we need to make the switch up. Like, he's got it. Like, there's a lot going on there. And on top of that, you can tell that Viserys is very overwhelmed. Like, he does not everybody's pressuring him about things that he does not want to worry about.
Well, it also reads to me as him just being like, I just want to have a nice weekend with my son. Like, I feel like, obviously, very stressful job being king. I can imagine him, like, for months looking forward to this one perfect little hunt that they're going to go on where he doesn't have to worry about all that shit.
Yeah.
And for setting himself up there, just the tiniest little thing, he's like, not today, please. No, do not ruin this for me.
Like, can we put a pin in that?
Which is what he does to Tyland, the Lannister boy.
Yeah.
The master of ships. He comes to him speaking on the conflict in the Stepstones. He's like, hey, this is this is bad. Like, things are urgent over there. We need to do something. And he shuts that down.
Yes, he just wants to focus on. And in the king's defense, I'm sure there's still a little bit of resentment towards, because I'm sure Otto's in his ear, like saying, hey, remember when your brother toasted to the heir for a day? Like, and
Yeah.
even though he never really had a relationship with his son, you can something that I notice about Viserys is as the death of his wife continues, his longing and his love for her increases. Normally you see like, it's almost like an episode, like you see the opposite. He often talks about now how much he loved his mother. Well, in the very first episode, I pointed out that even though like clearly he loved his wife and Viserys, Emma.
Yeah.
He loved her, but he was very much more, he was putting having an heir above her safety. And it wasn't like something that he was like shocked about. There had been failed pregnancies. And so he was putting that above her safety and her care. But ever since she's died, I think the like loss of her has just been building up that fondness. And rather than moving on, like it seems like he's been just having that longing for her grow. And because I just have noticed that he does continuously talk about how much he loves her mother, and to Rhaenyra through. And again, we'll talk about that whole scene in a bit, but he clearly still cares for his dead wife and thinks about her often. And it seems like that emotion is just growing there.
He seems like a sentimental guy.
Yes.
I mean, I don't doubt that outright. I mean, I do believe him when he says that he had a special connection with his first wife.
Oh, for sure.
But I also take what you mean to where it's like once somebody's gone, you kind of have a chance to forget all the bad and build up the legend a little in your mind.
Yes.
It's easy to do.
But as the king keeps asking, where is Rhaenyra?
Right. So Otto kind of backs up the king to the Lannister. He's like, we don't need to worry about this right now. And then he's on to, okay, where's Rhaenyra? She's not present at this.
So before we jump off on that, do you think that Otto is, again, this is my pessimistic mind because I see everything Otto that he does is horrible.
You hate Otto.
I hate Otto. I love the actor. He plays him so well, but I hate Otto.
Oh, by the way, because I promised I would get the pronunciation last episode. So it is pronounced Rhys Ifans.
Rhys Ifans. I hate Rhys is great. Rhys is awesome. Otto needs to be shot. He needs to be taken out. Like this motherfucker needs to die.
Well, it's only getting worse in this episode.
I know. But do you think that he's motivating the king not to focus on that, to try to like make Daemon look as terrible as possible, possibly get Daemon killed? Or do you think that it is like, because you don't really see anything that's gone on, or there's some things that are alluded to during the 3 years, but you don't really get a sense of the politics that's going on. But obviously they haven't helped out going on. Do you think that Otto has been purposely trying to make it so the king isn't focusing on that?
Sure. I mean, he basically states his position there in this opening scene, which I have no reason to believe he has wavered from in the years that have passed in between.
Yes.
And it also like serves his ends to encourage separation with a connection that had a possibly valid claim to being his heir.
Yes.
So yeah, I have no reason to think that he would suggest anything else.
Yes. But we do find out where Rhaenyra is. She's in the Godswood, and she's with a bard who's singing for her.
Which she's got this guy singing while she's reading. And I don't know if your experience on this earth is different, but I can't focus worth a damn on lyrics while I'm reading. And like, it's one thing in like the Spotify era where you're going to put on some tunes, but this guy seems a little put off by her requests.
I will say this. It's worth noting that the first time we see Rhaenyra in this Godwood, Alicent is reading to her or trying to quiz her on history, and Rhaenyra is blowing it off.
That's true.
Now we see Rhaenyra actually reading and studying, where I assume that these texts that she's reading are more of a history base. And you can't tell me that you never listened to music when you were studying in college.
Okay, see, that's a little different, but I'm just talking about the lyrics. Like, yeah, bring in your boy, get a little tune strumming up, but she's not paying attention to the.
But
to
if
the
you're
story.
playing your favorite song when you're studying, like you're gonna notice if there's like a stutter in it.
Okay, and you know, I'm not actually that particular about this. I'm just being a little stinker, but. I don't ever listen to lyrics. If I'm reading like in any context, even if I'm like browsing the web, like needing to read, I'm pretty reluctant to put on anything with lyrics. But like I'll put on a movie score, I'll put on an instrumental, a lo-fi tape, whatever.
Yeah. No, I get you there.
It also sort of makes sense that she would demand this more often. In that we get some indication that since she's had a falling out with Alicent, that she's probably been rather lonely these past few years.
Well, and not only that, and again, I don't want to, there's a point that I want to make, but I'll make this other point. You get a sense that she's probably been usurped of a lot of her power, where Alicent has come in to be the queen, where a lot of decisions that maybe Rhaenyra would have made is being now made by Alicent, because we do see that the Alicent tells the bard to stop, Rhaenyra tells the bard to keep going, Alicent tells the bard to go away, and at the end of the day, the bard listens to Alicent rather than the heir. Like,
yeah,
which I feel for the bard, because personally, again, I don't know necessarily how I would have gone with the heir's commands rather than with the queen's.
She's not the sitting royalty at that. Like, she's not the acting king or queen. So I think the appropriate thing to do is follow the queen, especially since in that circumstance, imagine Viserys walks in. Who would he encourage the bard to follow?
For sure, but I'm also just thinking from more of a political standpoint. The heir is more like the queen definitely might have more power in the moment, but the heir is going to have more power later on.
This feels a little complicated for our poor bard. one scene to be considering.
But before we get too far, I loved Rhaenyra's fit in this.
I didn't take note.
So she was wearing a black dress, but she had the leather scales on her shoulders to it looked awesome.
Right on.
She could have been about to go out on a hunt, or she was about to go out on a ball. But it was one of those things that it really looked good. It was that black dress.
So is this the same thing that she wears throughout the episode?
I don't think so.
I think she change.
I think she does change, but that was the first thing I thought when I saw her get the close up on the side, is because you have the shoulder pads of leather, but it's to look like dragon scales, and I loved it. But you get the conversation. Rhaenyra's still quite angry at Alicent, and they almost solidify that it has been about 3 years.
Which to me reads like, if it was gonna get better, it would have got better by now.
Oh, for sure. And it also shows that not only Alicent hasn't been able to cross that bridge, but Viserys hasn't been able to cross that bridge either. Now, again, going into Rhaenyra's shoes, she's 17 at this point. I'm sure she feels extremely betrayed by her best friend literally getting with her dad. And
that's a weird situation.
It's a weird situation, and I'm sure she's not really wanting to talk to Alicent about it. So she may even see it as a completely political move on Alicent's part, rather than just thinking
You think she doesn't have good faith in it?
I don't think she
Well, it seems like regardless, she's not giving her a chance.
Yeah.
It does. It seems like Alicent is trying to extend an olive branch in this scene.
Yes.
And it sort of indicates that, and just knowing her character, I'm inclined to think that she has kind of kept up a steady clip of those.
Yes.
But Rhaenyra is just not having it. Like, it really feels like in the 2 years, there has been no room in her heart to have, like, any kind of realistic conversation about this.
Yes, which on the flip side for Rhaenyra, I'm sure that's just building up. And I mean, we're going to eventually see her snap, but it's just building up in her. She has anger, she has resentment, she has loneliness, she has sadness just in her, and it's just boiling up and boiling up. And she's getting ready to just take it out on anything.
It's gotta go somewhere.
Anything else that you want to talk about that short exchange?
Nope, trying to keep this one under 2 hours.
Yeah,
so let's go.
So they leave for the hunt, and the King Viserys is just your typical dad on a road trip. Like, isn't this nice?
The whole family's together. Let's sing a song.
Let's have a good time. And Rhaenyra is quite making a point of being on the opposite end of the carriage, like away from her brother, away from her father, away from Alicent. One thing that I did want to point out is Alicent at one point says that Aegon, she said, Aegon can't, it's not so bad, because they're talking about the pregnancy, and because the king's like, oh, you're gonna be having kids yourself, I want grandkids.
Well, yeah, so that's Rhaenyra makes a comment to Alicent because she is very pregnant in this scene. She's like, should you be traveling? And she's like, the maester said it was a good idea.
The fresh air is good for the baby.
They say as they're pouring a cup of wine for the baby. Yeah, I'm sure you're working with the most up-to-date medical info there.
But she makes the comment, it's not so bad. Oh, where is it? It's not so bad. Aegon came quickly and without a fuss. And you just notice when she says that both the maids are like, again, like giving the whole side eye, like, this bitch is lying. Like,
oh, okay. I didn't catch any of that.
I've been really trying to look for those signs, especially where we saw so many in the first one, but it just kept cutting to the maids whenever out there. There was another point. I know I made a note on it.
I think I probably just read that as like them, like, this is an awkward conversation, but it could be deeper than that.
Well, they specifically panned to her right when Alicent said that. It wasn't like it was just on the maid servants right there. And I don't know how much to really look into that, other than later on we see Aegon is not an enjoyable child to deal with, which possibly could be relating to how he is in the future. Who knows? We won't want to get into future episodes, but
yeah. So what follows then is some teasing from the king to his daughter that, hey, you're going to be getting married and probably popping out a couple of your own here soon, right? Which she does not take particularly well.
No. And something I do want to point out that that Viserys does that I think is actually quite admirable, and part of me is like sad that Rhaenyra didn't take him up on it, even though I know she would have run off eventually. He invites her to come onto the hunt. Like, she's like, hey, you should come with us on the hunt, which,
well, it's more that he insists.
Does he insist on it, or
not
to that? Like, he's like, hey, you should come when they're in the carriage, he's like, you should come out on the hunt. Like,
but then and maybe there's a little bit more of an exchange there, but he's like, as part of your princess duties, or maybe that's him. No, I think you're right. He's like, you should do it. And she's like, I don't want to do it. And then he's like, it's your princess duties, which you've been ignoring. And then he's like, you're always reminding me that. And he's like, well, if you took care of it, maybe I wouldn't have to.
And I think, yeah, like, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, he was insisting, saying that it's the prince.
He wants her there.
Yes,
is the point. Like, it's a genuine thing. And also, like, from his perspective, it's probably a fair offer. Like, we're going out for a hunt. It's going to be a good time. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's showing that because that kings, that's what they do with their heirs. They take them on these adventures.
Well, more specifically, I would reckon that that's what they do with their sons. Too.
Yes, but it's one of those things where it's where the dad who always wanted a son, but he gets daughters, and so he teaches them how to play baseball.
Yeah, he gets them the pink BB gun.
They grew up learning all the rules of football. Like these are the future NFL coaches of America. But I do want to point out when they arrive to the actual camp, like their base of operations, again, you get like, I'm going to keep saying lickspittle. Like you're going to get like because when they show up, everyone starts clapping and like, it's very Kim Jong-un, North Korea-esque. Like, oh, he arrived to the camp. Yay. Our fearless leader is here. And it just doesn't feel genuine to me, especially where this next scene is coming up.
Well, no, don't rush past this, because this is actually a pretty significant maneuver on Hobart's part.
I was going to mention that.
Okay, like, you're on it.
How he was like, he very much was being an ass. And he's pressuring, like he's doing his not so subtle pressure for Aegon. Because I did you take note on exactly what he said?
Well, it's the episode title.
Oh, yes.
Because it's second of his name. So he proposes a toast hailing Aegon as second of his name.
Yes.
Which the subtext there is basically that he is the second King Aegon.
Yes. Yes.
Because you wouldn't be a second of a king's name if you guys get it.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely, like we said earlier, he inherited Hightower. Otto inherited the sneakiness, the stealthing, the maneuvering, and all of that stuff.
Which I'm sure that this also like really rubbed Rhaenyra wrong, because
for sure
there is one little line like immediately before this that we didn't mention, where she says, "Nobody's here for me."
Yes.
Which could be taken like literally nobody is here. Like she doesn't need to be present on the hunt. Like nobody's going to miss her. But it also implies like she doesn't feel supported.
No.
As a potential heir, or maybe even as a person. And
as we're going to see, like there's some other things that are going to be backing that up as we experience the glamping of of the Targaryens.
Are we there? Are we there then?
Where they go enter the tent?
Yes.
The tent that's nicer than most of the people's homes.
Indeed. Some nice set decoration, though, I will say.
Amazing. But I kept thinking glamping when I when I saw that.
You ever been glamping?
It's a goal of mine. I want to go glamping.
I've been glamping one time. It was all right.
It seems like a great time.
It doesn't live up to the hype, but it's nice.
But I mean, if you not to deviate too much, but when you go into a cabin, glamping is like a step below a cabin. So I mean,
yeah, but it's weird because it's like it has like almost like a different prestige to it.
Yeah. I have seen some glamping situations that look pretty incredible, but I also know I won't have enough money to do that level for several years, but it still looks pretty great. But I digress.
No, that was important for us to break down, Bryce. I'm not cutting that out.
Hey, I don't want you to cut it out. First thing that I noticed is Rhaenyra's purposely avoiding the king.
Yeah, creating some distance.
And you do see the king talking with a man that looks very much like the master of ships. We don't know his name.
Yeah, they're just speaking. We don't get a close up there.
Yeah, they're just speaking, but there's a very well-dressed man in red leathers and a golden lion on his chest.
More on that in a moment.
More on that momentarily. And we meet a character whose so despicable, he's like, you don't really get this despicableness from him, but he's so evil and despicable later on in the show that I can't help but love him. But we meet our boy Lars Strong.
Excellent. I mean, it's just a glimpse of this fellow, but you do notice how he just kind of like he excuses himself from the hunt, and then he just sits down and observes.
He sits down and observes with the high ladies.
Yes.
Where the tea is hottest.
The best gossip in all the land.
And we also should note that his brother is called by the king the strongest knight in Westeros.
No resentments there.
None.
I bet they have a very healthy, positive relationship. And I'm sure that he gets equal, if not more, love from his father.
Oh, I'm sure his father only focuses on his sons, especially the one who's a cripple.
But at the same time, Lionel does, like, he's my boy. He seems like a good guy, and we don't witness that, so I don't want to trash his name.
No, here's the thing. I feel like Lionel, he's great for the realm. Not great for House Strong.
Oh, yeah, he's a capital G great man.
I would even say he's a capital G great man because he makes all the good decisions. If the king just listened to Lionel, there would be significantly less problems in the realm.
Honestly, like, anybody in the show that should be running the shit, put Lionel on the throne.
Yeah. Like, and
it would never happen.
No. And it's just unfortunate because Lionel, like, he doesn't have that skeevingness that you can tell that Otto has. Like, but more on that later, because the ladies start inquiring of Rhaenyra on what's going on in the Stepstones. Like, and at first I picked that as, oh, they're respecting her authority, but it quickly turned in that they're almost making fun of Rhaenyra throughout it. Like,
a little bit.
Like, it's very passive aggressive that they're...
It's condescending. They're like, oh, yes, we'll allow the princess to weigh in.
Yes. And, like, they're asking her questions about, like, what the men at the table would be asking. And then when she does it, they're like, oh, we just thought with you being heir, you would know these things. How long is that going to last? But...
Oh, also there's a pug.
There is a pug. I did not put down the time marker for the pug, but...
No further comment, just worth noting pug. Although this is a really strong, like, animal episode.
Yes.
I do actually want to comment on that. A lot of dogs, and later on in this episode, a lot of really impressive horse work.
Yes.
So the pug.
I also want to point out again, lickspittles. Like, that's going to be this
Yeah.
Because everyone is shitting on Viserys behind his back. They're saying the war is going poorly. The king should be doing something about it. And to me, like, again, it's everybody's willing to cheer and compliment him and be all this. But the second that his back is turned, they are just talking mad shit. Like, it's very evident to me, and to me it's not a good sign because the king should be surrounding himself with people that are willing to tell him the hard truth. They should be, if he had a council of Lionels, like, he needs to have a council of Lionels.
Oh my God. Get 3 of those guys in your small council, unstoppable.
Like, they'd be able to take over the world if they wanted to.
If they wanted, they wouldn't, though, because they'd be good men.
You're absolutely right. I also do think it's worth pointing out that Alicent is very supportive of Rhaenyra. And to me, it doesn't even come across that she's, like, trying to be extra about it. Like, when they're, like, passively aggressively belittling her, Alicent is over there being supportive and...
Yeah, she's got her back, but not in a condescending way.
Yes. And to me, it shows that she doesn't necessarily, like, she supports Rhaenyra being heir and doesn't necessarily even consider Aegon as a replacement. Like, she's like, no, this is what the king wants. This is what the king decides. I love Rhaenyra. I want Rhaenyra to be heir, which is not what her father.
Yeah, there's a scene coming up that that'll challenge that.
Yes. Is there anything that you noticed or wanted to make note of in that little?
No, dude, we got the pug.
Got the.
That was actually my only note from that scene. Wait. No, I do have one more here where you may take note of. You don't get a lot of coverage of Lars in this scene, but there is one shot of him very much eyeing Alicent over a cookie. And I guess we'll see if that leads to anything later on down the line.
He is disgusting. He is nasty. And he is an amazing character. But we get to meet the biggest ass in the show.
Right. So Rhaenyra not having a good time with the ladies. She excuses herself. She leaves the tent and runs into, who would it be but a man that looks, as you say, oddly similar to the new master of ships.
He introduces himself as Jason Lannister.
This guy.
And he immediately starts talking about himself.
Now, it reads pretty obvious that he's had some wine.
Yes.
He offers some to Rhaenyra.
Yes. But he also very much is he gives off like the Chad at a bar.
Just
vibes.
a lot of me.
It's like, you should come to Castle Rock. Let me tell you, it's so much bigger than the Wall. It's the biggest tower that's out here.
Not a political podcast. So what happens is they're talking and Rhaenyra seems somewhat amused.
Yeah.
But not smitten, not taken, but she's indulging the conversation. This is more amusing than what was going on in the tent with the ladies there.
Yes.
And then he makes a comment about, something to the effect of, I don't have a dragon pit yet, but we can make that happen, when you and I.
And that's what I want to point out. He didn't say that we could be. He's like, you're gonna get married to me. Like, that's like,
Yep.
it very much was like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Like,
That's a very apt comparison.
like there's a lot of similarities there. Like, and that instantly kills the mood for, like, I'm not even saying there was a mood, but like it kills the enjoyment that she was having just being around somebody whose head was so large.
Well, right from there, it's back to the tent for her.
Yes.
Which that's like, she just left that situation, but
Well,
apparently it's even worse on the outside.
Well, Jason was like saying, oh, it's not the throne, but Castle Rock is just as good of a prize to have for you. Like, very much inferring that she's not going to be the heir.
Yeah. It's confirming her fears there even further.
Yes.
So she goes back in
Yes.
to the royal pavilion.
Back to the banquet.
And she confronts Otto about it, I believe.
So Viserys calls Rhaenyra over.
Oh, no, sorry, not Otto, Viserys, the king.
Viserys the one who calls her over. Like, it's very much not Rhaenyra who instigates the conversation. But the conversation ensues about how the king is trying to get Rhaenyra married. And Rhaenyra she's not about it. She doesn't want to get married, but I also feel, and I want your thoughts on this. Do you think that she just genuinely does not want to get married? Or do you think, I mean, obviously that's not the case, but in the moment, do you think she's viewing getting married as her losing her heirship?
Well, I think that's exactly it, because I think she sees, if I marry somebody, I'm not heir anymore.
Yes.
And it seems like she and Viserys have not had a conversation about that, but that's just the feeling that's in the air.
Yes. Because
that's how most of her suitors are seeing it.
Yes. And it's very much worth noting that this conversation is getting heated. It's becoming a public spectacle. They're like,
well, okay, I want to point this out because And Viserys has some good points here. Like,
Yes.
17, that's like approaching old maid status in this universe.
Yes.
And he has a line that he is slowly drowning in a lake of parchment. That I love that flowery. That's just a classic Viserys line. But that's just all the
He's a
proposals
poet.
are coming in. Yeah, this dude should have been a poet. He should
He
have
literally should have been anything other than king. Like there's anything other than he should have been
See, that's the trouble though. It's like it's on a curve where most of the kings in this show are like so wicked and like overtly evil. I'm like, no, he should be king, but also not very good at it.
It just shows you how low the bar is to be a good king.
Well.
I do also, I don't know if this was said later, but somebody did make note to Viserys that Jaehaerys, who was very much considered a great king, had a hard time with his daughters as well.
It's my boy Lionel that points that out, I think.
Yes, I think that, so I am definitely getting ahead of myself. But I think we can just agree, like, one, it's not that she's opposed to getting married, but she views getting married as a trap. And I also do agree with Rhaenyra in the sense that as heir to the throne, she very much should have a say in who she's going to get married to. Because the prince, if she was a boy, like, the prince would get a say on who, like, it wouldn't be like, oh, I can pick whoever I want, because there still very much is, you need to marry out of political means, because when you are royalty like that, there's just that level of responsibility that you don't.
Yeah, that Viserys seemed to have outright ignored at the end of last episode.
I wonder if anyone's going to call him out on that.
Yeah, but I just bring it up because I feel like that is sort of hanging over this conversation.
Yeah, well, it is, because Rhaenyra calls her out.
Later, but that's the subtext here.
Yes.
And this scene shows me, like, obviously there was some tension in the carriage on the way.
Yes.
But how quickly this escalates between the two of them, among all of these other nobles, no less, indicates to me that these tensions are like right under the surface.
Well, you get the sense that one, Viserys is extremely stressed about, like, he's stressed out about this situation. Two, he's been day drinking.
and once again, he just wants to have a nice birthday party for his son.
Can we not just have a good family barbecue without any of these issues coming up? The man just wants to be at the grill, cooking some good steaks.
He's a simple man. Shouldn't have been king.
Should have been king. But Otto does come to the conversation rescue by saying...
Wait, what'd you just say? Did you just credit Otto?
Otto comes
with
to the
doing
rescue.
a good thing?
Otto comes to the rescue by saving the king, saying that the White Hart has appeared, the king of kings in the wood.
Yes, a very special big game animal
Yes.
has been sighted and could pose a very positive omen for Aegon.
We're going to have this conversation in a little bit, but I do have a crackpot theory that there's nothing to confirm this. There may be in the book, but nothing to confirm this, that I want to spit towards you and see what you think. But Rhaenyra leaves. Like, that's like her.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of funny because we're like speeding through it, where it's like she's in the tent, she leaves the tent, back to the tent, and then out of the tent, gone. Like,
Yes.
That's kind of the progression of her character here, but it has escalated to where she's like, I just need to get out of this whole situation, clear my head. She gets her steed.
And she takes off. And Kristen Cole chases after her. And I did actually watch the after credits, not after credits,
the
but
inside the episode.
inside the
featurette.
episode. And the directors were pointing out that over the Kristen Cole was very much assigned to Rhaenyra. So you get the sense that they've developed this friendship over the 3 years that he's been a part of the King's Guard. And you see that bleed through where they're joking together. Like, Like one of my favorite lines is
is when he catches her.
When he catches her, he's like, "Do you want me to kill Jason Lannister?" Like,
but here's the thing. I'm not altogether certain he was kidding. If officially asked, I'm just saying. I think that this Criston Cole fellow is pretty deeply devoted to Rhaenyra.
I'd say that he's joking because I'm pretty sure there'd have to be a little bit of paperwork from the king before that. When one of the top lords in the realm.
See, you say that, and he's an honorable man, but I also...
For now.
What?
I think I had something in my throat there.
Moving on.
But I really feel like that line there just shows their closeness, even though, yes, we could assume that he would do it, but they have a laugh together. It's not the relationship that Sir Westeling had with.
No.
Sir Westeling is very much in that first episode, like just the stoic, the paladin. Like he's over there.
Yeah. And that might just be like the age thing too, where like where she and Criston are, there's a gap, but they're a lot closer in age, and I think for that they're allowed, they're not so stiff in their ways and precious about tradition and all of that.
I would say that, but there was not trying to throw back to a Game of Thrones, but there was a level of closeness between oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name, but the old knight
and Dany,
not Ser Jorah, but the guy who was the captain of the King's Guard before he was kicked out by Joffrey. Sir Barristan. Sure. The Bold. He's very much an old knight, but there's like a level of closeness. Dany would ask for stories from Sir Barristan, and Sir Barristan would tell stories about Rhaegar.
Yeah, it's kind of that like nanny relationship.
While between Sir Westeling and Rhaenyra, it's very much like, I am here to kill whoever is going to try to harm you, and I am here.
That's more or less the extent of it.
Yes. So there's all I'm saying is that there is some sort of relationship, more friendship. Like it's a friendship, but there is a relationship there between.
Yeah, there's an easiness between them.
Yes.
They walk and talk.
They walk and talk. I do want to point out he kept saying we should go back. We should go back.
Yeah, but he's he's not an ass about it, but it's just kind of a steady, probably once an hour, like, hey, your dad's probably feeling pretty worried. But she suggests that they explore the woods.
And
maybe the right call. I think she needs to blow off some steam.
And she was very much complaining. And again, I feel for her. But I really just wanted to be like, really, to her, when Sir Criston Cole's like, half the realm would give up everything to be.
He puts it very tactfully.
And again, I understand it's hard. You have responsibilities, but she's never going hungry. She can, she has literal wealth beyond imagination. And she's like,
listen, it's a lot of pressure.
It's a
lot of pressure, especially for a 17-year-old to be under.
I'm not trauma judging. All I'm saying is it's a very narrow-minded approach. Like she's not great. Again, I get it. She's 17, all that. She's not grateful for what she got. And which really much for me appreciates the line that Criston Cole says, hey, like you have more power than you realize.
Yeah, because she says... She's like, I may be heir, but I feel toothless, which was, of course, a reference to the hit Dragon series.
Yes.
How to Train Your Dragon. Which we will, I'm sure, at some point discuss on this show.
Of course. But Sir Criston Cole reminds her, like, hey, you're not toothless. You chose me. You changed my life. You may not think it's that big of a deal, but she literally made him from nobody to one of the most, he will go down, even if he didn't do anything else with the rest of his life, he will go down as a famous knight in history because he was chosen to be part of the Seven. like the King's Guard.
Which it's also like he needed that.
Yes.
Which is because, like, as we said, he was doing everything in his power, but it basically required somebody of a higher stature coming in and be like, that one. And she did that and made all of his dreams come true. And he achieved the highest station anyone in his family has ever seen.
And Rhaenyra was literally the only person who was going to do it, because if the king wasn't going to select him. And even if he did, Otto would have been like, no, you shouldn't do that, Your Highness. No. And he would have listened to Otto. But Rhaenyra, she doesn't put up with Otto shit.
That's a lucky break for Cole.
But anything else we want to talk about with that little walk and talk that they did?
No. Next scene, Viserys is getting more drunk back at the camp.
Is that, or are they on the hunt now?
On the hunt?
Because they go out there and it's the main hunter is like, it's fresh over here, and the king takes his gloves off and like is holding the deer shit. He's like, oh yes, it is. And then they go back to the.
Yeah, sorry, I just didn't make note of that here.
So this is what.
But I want to point out one thing in this, just because you reminded me. I don't think you see it in this scene, but you may notice that throughout most of this episode, Viserys is wearing gloves. Did you catch this as well?
I didn't necessarily notice that he's wearing gloves. I do notice that he takes off gloves quite often.
No. So here's the thing. There's a reason for it. Because they never do a close up on it. But there are a couple scenes where you can notice that he is missing a couple digits on I believe his left hand.
Is it a particular finger that had maggots?
Yeah, it seems like the whole maggot cure just didn't really pan out.
You don't say.
No emphasis, like no special close-up on that aspect in this episode, but you can view it in a couple scenes that his two of his fingers have been amputated, presumably to get ahead of that weird rot thing that was going on with his fingers. Because it's the fingers that he pricked on the Iron Throne in the
first
pilot episode. Yeah. So just a cool little thing.
I did not notice that. I'm glad you noticed that, because I did not pick up on that. But before we go to the king getting drunk, right about this scene, I have had a theory, and I'm not going to claim that I'm the first person to have this theory.
It's about the droppings?
Not necessarily about the droppings, but it's about the deer. And I know that I've mentioned this. The Hightowers are one of the most wealthiest families in Westeros.
Oh, I feel like I know where you're going with this.
Did they trap the deer earlier on and release it on this day, knowing that King Viserys is a sucker for prophecy, a sucker for destiny, a sucker for all of that, trying to convince him that this was going on? Because how would they know that? Like, okay, yes, they could be that they've seen the white hart in the woods, but they know I don't want to get too much into it, but that's not what they end up getting. But
well, but we also see in the episode that there is in fact a white hart, and also if they're making a play of it, they would come with the goods. So certainly there is a white hart in these woods.
Yes.
Was it released by the Hightowers? I wouldn't put it past them.
Again, I'm not going to claim that I came up with this theory myself. I'm not going to say that, but that's what kept going through my mind. And I know I would not put it past Otto to going ahead and catching a white hart before.
So Otto alone, maybe. I want to give him more, like a little bit of slack, but now this Hobart fellow. Shit, if it was in his power, no hesitation.
Again,
and it's just kind of like a perfectly little crafty play of theirs.
Yeah,
I could see it. Maybe we won't know for sure, but maybe.
Yeah, we'll never know. Like, it's very clearly not important to the plot. It's important more to the story of the episode. But it very much to me, like during the scene when they're actually going out and doing that, I very much am like, because Otto again's like, the White Hart.
My lord, your grace.
Did you know that this is the peak royalty before the dragons, of course, before the dragons showed up, but the White Hart, it's the symbol.
He's turning into Watto.
Hey, only the White Hart can protect the king. Hey, what do you say? Hey. All right, but the feast, they go back.
And the king gets drunk.
He's clearly miserable. Like, it is like he's wanting this to be a good family outing, and it just is.
It just keeps getting worse.
It just keeps getting worse. And Jason, our boy Jason.
Which I just want to ask you, do you feel like he looks like Ewan McGregor, speaking of Star Wars?
Jason or?
The actor. Yeah. Do you want a side-by-side?
I'd love a side-by-side.
Okay, I'll pull it up and you keep talking.
Because if you told me he was, like, clearly he's older. I mean, that Jason is younger now, but he looks older than what I think you're going to be referencing. So I could potentially see it. But Jason comes up and he gives him a spear. And I'm not going to lie. I'm a sucker for nice weapons.
It's a nice spear.
It's a very nice spear. Jason was just giving the king a spear. All he wants.
So that's your boy.
See,
that's him in this episode. It's the beard, and he has like kind of the same face structure.
Here's the thing. I get more. He's Walmart brand Chris Hemsworth. Like
with Chris Hemsworth, like, but you like in the gym once a day, not 3 times.
Yes. But the hair, the beard, like he's too Nordic, like for
fair play. It's just I just kept thinking Ewan throughout that, but not relevant. He approaches the king and he presses his offer. And he's like, well, Rhaenyra's not really hearing me, so let's talk to the king. That's a reasonable thing for me, Jason Lannister, to do.
And again, he more tells Viserys that he's going to marry Rhaenyra rather than saying like, hey, let's get this to work. Like there's
to tell the king that too.
Yeah, I'm going to say like this guy, like you have to enjoy like how arrogant he is. Like
I actually really enjoyed him in this episode.
He's fun because I think the reason that he's so much fun is, he's not really like a direct threat. He's not like a Tywin Lannister who's very cold and calculating. Like you get the sense.
No, he's a goof. he's just a goof with insanely deep pockets.
He's got the worst of both worlds from Tyrion and Jaime. Like all of Tyrion's worst traits and all of Jaime's worst traits combined into one there. But you can just tell from the king's face, like he's doing a very poor job at hiding. He hates Jason as well. Like if he didn't hate him before, he clearly does not think highly of him.
Not feeling the match, no.
And there's a particular like conversation that really sets the king off when Jason says, I offer strength. And
he's like, you think House Targaryen lacks for strength? And he's like, more strength.
And here's the thing. I don't think Jason was necessary. Like, I think he's saying the quiet part out loud right now. Because I don't think the realm...
Oh, yeah, that hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah, like, I don't think the realm sees House Targaryen as strong. Yes, they have dragons and they're killing machines, but they're losing the war right now. The king's not doing anything to protect... like to help out in the war.
He doesn't seem to be a man of action.
No. And so Jason is like, oh, like maybe he's just not confident in his military ability. I've got a great army. I've got wealth. I've got that, all of this. I can support him and give him strength. And so
it sort of backfires, but as you outline it there, it's understandable why he made the play.
Yes. Again, everybody else, the king has surrounded himself with lickspittles. They're not willing to say it to his face. Like if Jason wasn't drunk, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't have done this. But if he was somebody who would actually speak to the truth to the king And he's like, do you think Targaryen lacks strength? It'd be like, well, why haven't you gone to your brother's aid? Like, why are you leaving your brother to defend the realm? Like,
Sure.
You're not doing that. And again, I know that the Lannisters are not as powerful as they are in a Game of Thrones, but it's still very valid, in my opinion, to do that. But again, it just emphasizes that they don't respect them.
But then the final nail in the coffin is when he asserts that once Rhaenyra marries him, Jason, that he can then just, go about and name Aegon as his proper heir.
And I think this is the first time that Viserys realizes, like, oh, this might be why Rhaenyra is so upset about getting married, because everybody's assuming
Yeah.
that once she gets married, she loses the claim.
And to his credit, he calls out Jason on this. He gives him a good mouthful.
Like, I specifically made note that Viserys lays down his anger by that he named, like, he very much emphasized, I named Rhaenyra heir. Like, you guys don't get to name the heir. I named the heir. Rhaenyra is my heir. And he's clearly upset about it. And Jason sort of just
slinks away.
Homer Simpson's into the bush. And the king starts doing what he does best and continues to drink.
And this is a nice little, like, transitional scene that they do here, where it's sort of the world just like zooms into Viserys, and then you just get like kind of like echoey laughter all around him as he drinks. The shadows grow darker.
Here's how I picked that up, though. Well, first of all, before I dive into it, his like travel throne, amazing. I don't know if you looked at like the carvings in it. It looked incredible. I need that chair. Like, that's my goal to have as a chair. It's covered in dragons. Like, we
got to get our spheres first, but then the chair is definitely on the agenda, and then we can maybe think about getting an actual backdrop.
But Otto comes over before. Here, I'll just dive into that. With the laughing, I viewed that where he's hearing the laughing. He's not internalizing that people are having a good time around him. I think he's internalizing, again, what he went through with Jason, where everybody's laughing at him. He's thinking he is the butt of the joke. He's the king that won't defend his brother. He's the king who can't make up his mind. Oh, he has named a woman as his heir, but he's going to name a son because that's what everybody else wants to do. And I mean, later on in the episode, he opens up where he talks about that he was very vulnerable for a second and was doubting his decisions, but he had solidified his decisions that he was making. But
I think I jumped ahead in that actual moment with the echoey laughter. I do believe comes after he's approached by Otto.
Yes.
But I mean, throughout this whole thing, Viserys is just drinking more and more, getting more and more drunk. But then Otto approaches with a another questionable a pitch.
Yes. Otto
probably taking advantage of a drunk king, shooting his shot in the ideal circumstances, the snake he is.
I do want to point out, I do think that it was, because I believe Otto was next to Viserys when Jason was first talking.
Certainly nearby.
Well, and no, I mean, when Rhaenyra walked into the tent before and she saw her father talking with Jason, I believe Otto was there as well.
Yeah, because oh, no. Yeah. Keep going.
Well, I just believe that it was Otto who initially was pushing for Jason to be the match. It makes more sense that, because if the king knew who Jason was, I don't think he would be all on board of pressuring Rhaenyra to be it. Again, tinfoil hat. I believe Otto purposely picked out some of the most like airheaded assholes in the realm to
pitch to the king as matches for Rhaenyra, because that would like soften her claim to the throne, because it's like, well, she's married to this buffoon.
Well,
and we're gonna make him the first guy.
I can see that, but that's not quite where I'm going. I'm more going that he's pressuring her. He's pushing these men off onto her, so she will reject them, and the king will continually get more frustrated and get more desperate to find, which would maybe make him more susceptible to some more outlandish wedding proposals.
To entertain some out of the box ideas, huh?
Yes, which, as you said, Otto comes up and may take advantage of a very drunk Viserys by proposing that Rhaenyra marries Aegon.
Oh,
Because, every 17-year-old's dream husband is a 2-year-old.
lovely. And again, to Viserys' credit, not feeling it.
No,
he dismisses that one real quick.
Like he not only dismisses it, but he laughs it off.
Yeah, he's like, he's 2.
Like, I do, like, Otto is very much like, it's Targaryen tradition to keep the bloodline pure. And like,
think about it. Solves a lot of problems. Makes sense to me.
and like the king, it just completely blows him off and gets even more drunk. Like, he's just continuously drinking after this. When also great music choice. Again, I feel like every episode.
Yeah, I took note in this sequence in particular. Really nice.
The music was just, it's good soup.
Yeah. But then he is approached by the third well, I don't know where I was going there. He's approached by Lyonel Strong.
Yes.
And
the third visitor of the night.
well, yeah, that's what Viserys expects. I mean, he kind of jokes with him. He's like, "All right, so what's your pitch for my daughter's hand?" And
it's like, should I marry him off to your son, the strongest knight in Westeros? Which, I mean, maybe, but Lionel very much is trying to be helpful. And I made note, he's being helpful, not a politician. Like, he's not trying to station himself above others or position himself in a better spot. He's genuinely trying to offer help. And Viserys, like we said, thinks he's talking about his son. But instead, Lionel recommends that Laenor Valerian should be named heir. I mean, not heir, named heir.
See, that's because the pronunciation is just a total crapshoot. I kept thinking Laenor.
Laenor.
That can't be it.
I think it's Laenor.
But we're talking about the same character. It's the sea snake's son.
The sea snake's son, which he points out it will appease the sea snake because the heir he's still tied to the royal family, and that will be getting sons and daughters into the royal line. And this is the first time where you see the king like genuinely entertaining an idea. Like
and maybe that's just coming after a couple bombs that got thrown his way.
And in the defense also, like as we see later on, Laenor is very much, he's a known warrior. He's a dragon rider.
He's roughly age appropriate.
He's intelligent. Like I made note of that, and I'm excited to dive deeper into that. And like, frankly, like he's an attractive young man. Like he's not somebody that you can really say, okay, I'm pitching my daughter with somebody who's ugly. Like, and again,
some might say the total package.
And also, not only is he Valerian, but he's Targaryen. He's got the 2 bloods going for him. He's got
Indeed.
He's got all of the old blood with him, which is very important.
That's my boy Lionel. He's just pitching the most practical, like all parties compromising, going away happy pitches.
Yeah, and he points out it would bring the Valerians back into the fold, and it would give it the Corlys an excuse to gracefully be able to come back without looking like he's giving, because that's still a big deal to be named. I mean, he will be the king. His son will be named king. And he didn't come out and say it, but I think Lionel was doing a very good job at incepting the idea into Viserys' head to go fight in the Stepstones. Because I feel like throughout the 3 conversations, the king has very much been slowly turning his idea to helping Daemon out there. Because with the first conversation, he felt like he's weak. He was almost pointed out that he's weak for not helping Daemon and they're losing. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. Then comes Otto, who we know Otto's been trying to push him away from Daemon. And I'm pretty sure that whole, like, you should marry your 2-year-old son to your 17-year-old. Like, I'm sure that was like, okay, who put you in charge? Like,
That's what I say. That look he gives him, he's like, what are you smoking, bro?
Yeah, like, I'm drunk and that idea still sounds terrible.
Although I do, the one thing that he doesn't seem to pick up on is how that so overtly benefits Otto's grandson.
Yes.
So I mean, he skipped. He seems to have saved himself from the greatest embarrassment of that whole situation.
But, and then the last thing is Lionel, he makes the note like, well, we couldn't do anything until the war's over. Like, he makes something along those lines of a comment like, well, we could get that, but the war needs to be over before any of that's discussion.
Yeah.
So again, just incepting the idea into the king that, okay, maybe I need to do something about this. Like, this is, and again, I think this bit conversation is big for Lionel. It's going to have big repercussions down the road.
He aced it. That's my boy.
Anything else that you want to go over with your boy Lionel?
I wish. No, we need to move on to, I think it's over to Rhaenyra and Cristen.
Mm-hmm.
They're making camp. He's still prodding, suggesting they head back to the greater party, but Rhaenyra's not ready. So they set up outdoors, make a little fire, and then they hear a little rustling in the foliage. There.
I'm not gonna lie, I knew what was coming. I knew what was going on, and it was still very tense. Like, it was a very tense scene. Like,
because I remembered it was a wild boar, and wild boars are so scary.
Yes. No, I should note, a certain king is killed in a Game of Thrones by a wild boar. Spoiler alert. Austin, we forgot to do the spoiler alert.
No, that's spoiler alert from last episode is just standing.
I don't think people are going to accept that. Spoiler alert, in case you did not pick up on this, we're going to be covering spoilers here in House of the Dragon, episode 3, the second of his name. Back to our program.
Anyway, the boar bursts out, low-key attacks.
He sends Criston Cole flying.
Yeah. And he's like on top of Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
About to fuck her whole situation up. And then Cole comes to the rescue with a quick stab that gets kind of close to Rhaenyra, but it's cool.
Yes.
And then with the weakened boar, Rhaenyra then just unleashes her pent-up fury on.
Yes, like, it's very vicious, very...
Sorry, you go.
No. I was just gonna say, very much vicious, very much like she's screaming as she does it. Like,
well, yeah, it's a wonderful bit of performance in that you really feel everything that she's been dealing with in this episode, like, coming out in this moment.
And as much as I'm glad that we talked about it, I do think it's worth pointing out that Rhaenyra, even though she's not outright being doubtful of herself, she's pointing out that the realm is doubtful of her. And she's very much being, in a sense, vulnerable with Criston Cole, where she's like, she's not outright saying it, but you get the sense that she's like, am I not meant to be the queen? Like, am I not meant to be heir? Like, is this going to work? Like, will the people not accept me? And she's pretty cruel to her father as well. but with what she's been through, I understand. But I think it's poetic almost that she's doubting herself. She's like at the back of mind doubting herself, or at least doubting the situation that she's in. Then to come out and have this very victorious moment where she does kill, like you can see the symbolism that she's killing the doubt in her. She's killing the adversity that's coming, giving her that confidence that she needs to really step in and be who.
Sure. And that's in the like inside the episode thing. That's what the team behind it sort of outlines as their concept for this episode is that they labeled it childhood ends, which I think it's more elegant to just say this is kind of like a coming of age episode.
Yes.
Especially for Rhaenyra in this moment where she's not necessarily like head on tackling the obstacles in front of her, but this whole like she goes off into the wilderness and has like a little adventure, a little near-death experience. It's very much in line with that classic coming-of-age moment.
Well, and they do
like rising to the occasion.
And they point out that she's not alone in this episode of having this experience, that there's two others that are going to be having maybe not as dramatic. Well, one of them is definitely just as dramatic as this, if not more dramatic. But the other one, the king, like it's not this level of drama, but you get the sense that, and we'll cover it, but there's the doubt that's there. But the king is, well, that's, I think at this moment, the king is at the bonfire.
Drunk as hell.
There's nothing better than being drunk at a bonfire, brother.
Not today, not for Viserys. He's having a rough one.
And Alicent approaches the king, and even though we established that they are close, you get a sense that marriage has definitely formalized their relationship in this. And I say formalized in the sense of like, it's almost as if they're playing roles. That's how I'm like, she's like, oh, I'm the dutiful wife. He's the dutiful husband. And the conversation doesn't seem to flow, like in the beginning, at least, it doesn't flow like it used to.
Yeah, I pick up on that a little bit.
But you can get the sense that in this scene where he's talking to Alicent, that he's very much still driven by prophecy. He's still a dreamer. He's still just.
Well, it also seems like he's sort of toying with the validity of that.
Yes. Well, he points out
that's one of the things he's questioning.
Yes, he's questioning whether prophecy. It's still important to him because the Song of Ice and Fire was a prophecy there. Like that's something that's very important to him. But his own prophecy, he seems to have experienced, he can't grasp or wrap his mind around. And it's allowing him to doubt himself and doubt his decisions. And as I alluded to earlier, I'm sure, very much doubting whether he should have named Rhaenyra heir or not. But
he basically says as much.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting I mean, a lot comes out in this moment. It's a very vulnerable moment for Viserys.
Yes.
Where an interesting line that I picked up on is that he said he named Rhaenyra heir to protect the realm from Daemon, but then he also says that he did it out of love, which I don't know if that's just drunk speak or.
Here's, again, going to my comment earlier about how the heart grows fonder, where, yes, I know that it is love, but he wanted to name Rhaenyra heir because he realized he loved his first wife.
That's what I think. Because at first I was like, love for Rhaenyra? I mean, like, yeah, she seems pretty down with being heir, but I don't know but I think that's what he's actually indicating is that, like, he loved his wife who he just lost. And that was maybe the primary motivation in making that move.
And he wants to ensure that her legacy will still be continued within the throne rather than the legacy of anybody that would have come afterwards, rather.
And he does express that he, in that moment of naming Rhaenyra his heir, truly was not thinking about remarrying. And like he said, I never thought I'd get married again. Never thought I'd have an opportunity to have a son, which seems a little impractical, but also we do need to rewind a bit and like very emotional time when he made this call in the first place.
Yes.
And to this day, I'm still not sure if it was the right call, but what it ultimately comes to is him basically doubling down in this episode.
Yes. But when this starts going on, a horn goes off. A horn indicating that the hunt is coming on. So that cuts to where they find the White Hart.
Which is clearly not.
Yes.
A white. I mean, it's a big boy.
He a big boy.
Multi-point.
The rack on that.
Yeah, it's a brown elk. And I think I don't hunt. I that's right. Am I correct?
Yeah. The thing is, everybody like Lionel's son. I'm blanking on his name, but the strong boy,
That one.
Like he's like, it's not the White Hart, but it's still a very powerful beast.
Yeah, and he gives him the spear that he just got as a gift from the Lannisters.
Lickspittles. They're all lickspittles. Like I hate it. Like that scene alone where they're all like, step here, my lord. Yeah, nope. You want to step a little bit to the left. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, and again, I'm not trying to put down anybody that enjoys hunting or like finds joy in that. Not really my thing. But there is something to where like the animal is already like restrained and they're like, you just need to come up and kill it. That
and you
kind of gets under my skin.
You do get the sense that like,
fish in a barrel, you know.
Well, you can almost sense like Viserys is doing the hunt almost as he's expected to. You don't get the sense that there's any like there's no what's the word? Like aggravation. There's no like there's not a violent part of Viserys. Like he's not like he didn't participate in the actual hunting where Robert Baratheon was actually like he wasn't having them tie down a boar for him.
Oh,
like,
no way.
Like he wants to be the one that's actually going out with a spear and like skewering it. Like he does not like he is seeking the thrill of the hunt. While Viserys, like they're doing this for him ceremonially almost like trying to give him the win and he's bad at it. Like he misses on the first thrust and then on the second thrust again I hate it. They all start clapping like it's like clapping when a plane lands. Like yes, congratulations.
Since you brought up Robert Baratheon though, I don't know if you saw just a quick little tangent here. I don't know if you saw that our boy George, Mr. Martin, was very vocal about his satisfaction with this particular episode because he was also vocal in how the hunt in season 1 was like the greatest disappointment to him and like how they were not really able to realize the grandiosity of that he wrote in the book for that particular thing. So just kind of funny to me. And it is like the contrast between the two is kind of insane. The way they were, because pretty much everything we see in this is practical.
Yes. Again, I am glad that they're getting George in the room more. George should just have a desk there. And if he's not at the desk, he should be on the line because when he's not in the room, that's where
we get to 3/10, not 50. No, I mean, it's a budget thing. Just
for sure.
Funny note. It is noteworthy, though, that it ends up being the brown stag, though,
yes.
in that surely for Viserys, a man of signs, whatever the origin of the White Hart, for him to then approach the animal that they have captured and see that it is not is sort of a dismissal of that as a potential sign that Aegon is maybe the proper heir.
And in the behind the scenes, they say that Viserys looks almost relieved. I don't get the sense that he looks relieved when he sees like he looks exhausted. Like he just looks
Well,
like
he's wine hungover, which
Yeah.
we all know is the very worst kind of hungover.
Yes. But I don't get that sense of
He might still be drunk a little bit.
he probably is still. The thing is, like, he didn't go to bed. Like the horn blew and they all got saddled up. So he's probably still drunk and probably had a little wineskin there, just kept
I mean,
going.
it's clearly some time has passed between the two scenes.
Oh,
but
for sure,
Yeah,
but-
he's probably got a little bit of a buzz. That's probably why he misses.
But the biggest thing that I took from it is what you just said, the sign portion, but also just showing the non-violent nature of Viserys, which, again, is very much noting because he was the last dragon rider of Balerion the Black Dread. Like, again, is there a conspiracy? Did he actually ride Balerion the Black Dread? Or did he just ride him once and they're like, all right, he's the he's
That's
the he's the rider. But I don't know. Anything else that you wanted to break down there?
No, we do then see we cut to Rhaenyra and Cristen,
Yes.
and they witness the White Hart in all its glory.
Yes.
And Kristen's almost going to draw his sword, like, "Oh, we got it!" And Rhaenyra stops him.
Very much an omen. Like the White Hart, who is the king of the forest, or more importantly, was the king of the forest before the Targaryens came to Rhaenyra, the dragon.
Well, it could also be taken that Rhaenyra had maybe not a realistic one, but something of a chance to like fulfill like the Great Hunt, which would have been her like conceding to Aegon being the true heir. So I mean, it's an act of mercy, but for her to stop him, she's like, no, just let it go. I am accepting my role, like I am stepping up into my place as heir.
Yes. Can I also point out, I just loved the blood stain in her hair, like that. Like,
Yeah. Oh, and that she owns it as she's walking back into camp. She's like, "What up, doe?"
And the strong boy. I don't. He was like
Big strong.
big strong. Was like, hell yeah! Like he was like laughing more to like while he was skinning a rabbit, and like very much impressed.
So they return to camp at last. They bring the boar carcass.
Yes.
So and I have to assume people are impressed to hear that Rhaenyra scored. So she captured some game of her own.
Again, they just witnessed the king barely be able to kill
Sure,
an elk
yeah.
that was tied down, while they know Kristen Cole was the only person there. So yes, he did strike the initial strike, but
She's covered in blood.
she's covered in blood. Like she clearly did something, and she's not injured. She's not visibly injured. But after that, they do make the return to King's Landing.
Yep, fast travel, and then we get a scene with Otto confronting Alicent about something.
I do also want to point out before that, Aegon is throwing the biggest fit. Like when that scene
Yeah.
starts. Again,
Those terrible twos, mate.
first contradicting what Alicent said, that he's easy. And again, maybe foreshadowing to how he's going to be in the future. But Otto does ask to be alone with Alicent. And I also do want to point out Otto refers to Alicent as Your Grace. Like does not, even when they're alone, like doesn't drop that level of formality. And to me, that's not necessarily that he thinks people are listening in, but more that he's trying to convince Alicent of what her position is. It's like affirmation, like you're the queen, your grace, like your grace, like trying to show that she does have power and authority.
Well, and set the scene. I mean, it's like if you're true royalty, then it by extension your offspring maybe deserves something.
Yep, he props up Aegon to Alicent and really tries to push that he needs to be named heir. And to Alicent's credit, she doesn't seem convinced. Like, she doesn't want to do this. But then Otto says the line.
He presses,
and he has the line, "The road ahead is uncertain, but the end is clear." Like, he very much is like, okay, it doesn't matter. Aegon is going to be named heir. We're going to make it happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but just know it's going to be happen. But we need your help to get that.
And
there.
I mean, this is interesting to me because it really does feel like him coming out of the shadows and like laying this out for his daughter, who he's. I mean, maybe there have been some versions of this conversation in the time between episodes, but it reads to me like he's been happy to just kind of have her as his pawn.
Yes.
And this is Otto trying to bring her into the family plot. He's like,
yes.
This is what we're trying to do. Like, no secrets.
Yes.
Well, I mean, he's still being pretty cunning with it. Like, he's leaving some room there, but she's smart enough that I'm sure she knows the game at this point.
Yes. And
he's using some like strong language, like, this is his birthright. Like, your son deserves to be the king by tradition and precedent.
Yes. And he's doing full press court. Like,
Yeah.
Which goes to the next scene of Alicent and Viserys in Viserys' room. And it doesn't really show it, but it looks like he just got treatment for something on his back, because there's a lot of the maesters, and the king is hungover.
He has been punished for his sins. Dude, that wine drunk. Never again. Or the wine hangover, I mean.
Dude, oh my gosh. I remember it when we were in the apartment in St. George, and there was a day that I was seriously sick all day because it was a wine drunk that I had experienced. But no.
Just to cut the sugars. And to anybody listening, I know you do. I know you very well. But see, here's the key, Bryce. Here's the strategy.
Okay.
You do one. That's what you start with.
Start with one.
You get a buzz going, then it doesn't matter. You can switch over to the harder stuff.
But the good stuff just tastes that much better. But back to us.
Neither of us are heavy drinkers anyway, so.
Back to the red episode. The king turns the conversation to Rhaenyra getting married. And in Alicent's defense, she does turn like it should be Rhaenyra's choice to pick.
Well, she's a little more practical about it. She's like, listen, you know your daughter. She needs to feel like she has a choice in this.
Yes.
Which, I still feel like Alicent is in Rhaenyra's corner, especially after that conversation that she just had with her father.
Yes.
But I think this, like, practical approach is the best way of breaking it down for Viserys.
Yes. But on that, Corlys's brother, I have his name here.
Yeah, I wrote it in Vaemond?
Vaemond, has written the king.
Yes.
And with that, Alicent is curious, and so the king lets Alicent read the letter to see what's going on, and he just lays it out like the war is going very poorly for them. He's begging the king to send troops to help, otherwise they're going to lose the war. And Viserys, one, he's hungover right now, so I'm sure he's not really motivated to really think about war. Plus, again, we reiterated that he's not a violent guy, and he doesn't want to be dealing with that. And he still is bitter towards Daemon, and he even says that he's going to look weak if he goes and helps Daemon, because he's going to be coming late to the war. So he's very much concerned about that image. And it's just not a good situation. But Alicent points out, like, is it better for the crab feeder to like win and take ground than for Daemon to have this victory.
Which is also asserting the urgency of it, because she's like, this is now or never. Like, you can fix this situation or not. So which one, like, A or B? Which outcome do you want?
And again, I just point out this entire episode, the king has been surrounded by just complete bootlickers and lickspittles. And Alicent's the first person besides Lionel to come up and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. You're either going to lose over here or you can fight.
Eat crow a little bit.
Yeah. And she even pointed, like, you can make it look like you're like, there's a way to wrap this. Like,
yeah. There's a way to do it. So, I mean, in essence, what it amounts to is she convinces him to send aid.
Yes. Because we get our first small council meeting
Yeah!
a little later in the episode, but a letter is written to Daemon by a very honored man who's going to deliver the letter with no issues whatsoever.
Yes, he is instructed to hand it to Daemon directly.
And I'm sure he's so excited to do so, and that nothing poorly is going to come out of it. But Rhaenyra comes to the king, and he reiterates to Rhaenyra that aid is going to be sent to Daemon. And this is, to me, a very meaningful conversation that the king has with Rhaenyra, because
it's they're saying the things that haven't been said.
Yes. Which, it's funny, it seems like each episode they have this conversation. Like,
It's where the drama is.
But Rhaenyra feels like she expresses that she feels like she's being replaced by him.
Well, so this is an interesting line where she says something to the effect of, "You mean to replace me with Alicent Hightower's son," instead of referring to Aegon as her brother.
Yes.
I think she very pointedly puts it that way, which says a lot about how she feels about the relationship.
And I don't know if that view ever really changes, but and she does point out that that she's just she feels like her father's just trying to marry her off for advantage, which he sort of is, like,
A little bit. And even if he still had it in his mind to keep her heir, it hasn't been feeling that way.
No, and again, like, I don't really know how to, like, break this to, like, again, I'm not in the situation, but Rhaenyra has to understand, like, her marriage, like, her father is trying to do the best that she can for her in this marriage, but at the end of the day, she's going to have to marry for advantage. It's not like she's not going to just be allowed to marry whoever she wants. She has to be married to a great house. Like, there's...
Yeah, which that's she kind of calls out Viserys in this scene for not doing that with his marriage to Alicent Hightower. And once again, to his credit, he kind of takes that and he's like,
You're right.
Yeah. I don't know if he says you're right, but that's the air about it. And the compromise they seem to come to is he's like, all right, do what I did. Like, pick somebody, but you need to get married.
Yes. And he also does reiterate his love for Emma in this conversation. Again, something that is very crucial for Rhaenyra being named heir to the throne.
Yeah, and he reiterates, like, he reaffirms that she is the heir to the throne, and he admits that he wavered. And the way he says it, it makes it sound like he was like, months ago I wavered, but
it was not even 24 hours ago.
Yeah, but he's like, but no, I am more sure in this decision than ever.
Which that part, I don't think he's lying. I'm sure that he's convinced that he's like, okay, Rhaenyra is my heir, and I'm sticking to that. And
that's how the scene wraps, I do believe. this transitions to the Stepstones.
Yes. And you just see the carnage that's there. You see a few ships that are flying, and you see flaming catapults coming in, and one of the flaming catapults hits one of the ships. But at 50:28, we get our first dragon of the episode. We see
no, because we had that whole opening with Caraxes.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm completely blanking. It's such a light dragon episode that
never enough.
Never enough. Sorry. At 50:28, we get Caraxes flying around, sort of surveying what's going on, and the ships that are there are getting attacked, and I believe one starts to sink, and you can see several sunk ships.
And then as we move into a conversation with Corlys, his brother Daemon, and his son Laenor.
Yes.
They outline a pretty dire situation, which we've already had some indication of, but they're like, morale is down.
Yes.
We do not have enough resources to sustain this. Like, we're getting desperate. And then they sort of lightly start talking about we need to do some kind of play to draw them out, or we're going to lose.
And I do want to point out, it is Laenor who's doing all of this. Yes, I'm sure he's talked with his father about this, but all the tactician side of it, you're hearing Laenor lay it all out, which to me, again, shows that sign that Laenor is not an idiot. He's an intelligent young man. He's a battle-minded fella. Also, Corlys in his full plate armor
God
amazing. But I do want to also point this out. What on earth? Corlys is known for his ships. He's known as, like, he was the fleet admiral. He was
the master of ships.
The master of ships. Why is all your troops wearing full plate armor when you're
hey.
You're fighting?
You're gonna compliment the fit, and then take it away.
Yes, you don't have your soldiers wear full plate armor when you're in ships. They will sink to the bottom of the ocean. So if you notice, all of the troops of the fat crab feeder, they're all in leather armor. You don't see any plate armor on that, and you know that they've had opportunities to pick that plate armor off of them. Just
you'd think you would know.
You'd think you know. Again,
but it looks badass.
The drip is amazing. Like I love the drip. Corlys's armor is incredible. Laenor's armor is pretty great too. The brother, again, I'm blanking on his name.
I got it on the breakdown. Daemon.
Yes, Daemon.
I will say though, the Laenor's actor, his name is Theo Nate. I like the character. His performance is a little stiff in these episodes.
Yeah.
Or in this episode. It's fine. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue. They're approached, or I think Caraxes lands after they've been discussing for a moment, and Daemon dismounts and joins them.
Yes.
But before they can get too much deeper into the conversation, a message arrives.
And I also want to point out, well, at 52:28, Caraxes returns.
Excellent.
And I want to point out, well, first, Daemon is very much doubting Daemon and like saying this is Daemon's fault. And Corlys is like, hey, do not encourage dissent. Do not encourage mutiny. And like tells his brother off, like saying, hey, like Daemon did this for, like, again, Corlys convinced Daemon to come over and join this fight. It wasn't like Daemon started the fight. Corlys started this fight. It's not, and I almost appreciate Corlys like sticking up for Daemon in this sense where he's like, hey, like, this is the bed we made. Like,
sure.
Like, we're like, you can be mad all you want, but keep it to yourself because we made this mess ourselves. Like, this isn't anyone's fault. And you're just, again, I know I'm putting a lot of words in his mouth, but that's the sense that I got from it. Like, hey, even though it's just don't stir up mutiny, that's the sense that I get. But at 53:22, we get the famous meme moment of Daemon reading the letter. Just like, This is like,
He goes, oh, all right, and then calmly puts it to the side.
turns back to the table. There's dramatic music, and then he brings his helmet in with the right
chair.
It just starts wailing on to the poor messenger guy. Like,
Yeah, it's a pretty intense, violent outburst. It doesn't last too long. They restrain him, but it is one of those like, get it together, Daemon. Like, it's just the messenger.
yes, and you do get a visible sense that people lose hope at that moment. Like, you see it pans onto the faces of some of the soldiers, and like they already look demoralized. That just sort of
Demoralization intensifies.
yes. And at that point, Daemon sort of takes it on himself to be the suicide mission that they were discussing about.
The bait.
The
as
bait.
it were.
Yes. And while he's rowing out there, you actually hear the letter that Viserys wrote. And based off the letter and based off of the reaction, Viserys is very much like saying, we're going to put our differences aside and I'm going to come help you for the good of the realm. And you get very much the sense that Daemon does not want his brother's help, because I get the sense he's doing this for his brother. Like, yes, he's doing it for himself, but he's trying to prove to his brother that he can do this and does not want his big brother to come and save the day.
Well, it's not just that. It's like, I've been at this. I've been at war for 3 years now. Like, you will not come and take this victory from me.
Yes. And I really do feel like Daemon at this point is like, okay, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to my brother that I can do this without his help. So, excuse me.
All or nothing.
All or nothing. He's going to be the bait. He's going out there. And he even does something that you never see a white-haired Targaryen do. And he kneels down holding out a sword.
Well, first he's waving the white flag.
Yep.
And then once he's encountered some of the crab feeder's men, he holds out his sister, which I learned is called Dark Sister, which is such a badass name for a sword.
And very much, there's a lot of significance to that, because Dark Sister is one of the 2 swords that was brought from Valyria by the Targaryens, and has been passed down all the way from Aegon the Conqueror. Like, Aegon the Conqueror had his own Valyrian steel sword, while one of his sisters had Dark Sister. And so and it does talk about in the books, Valyrian steel swords are worth more than kingdoms. So the fact that he's offering up,
Is he now?
offering up is like a big deal.
Sure, but in reality, he's playing a nasty trick. He pulls out a dagger. He guts a fella.
And then he just starts running.
One-man army, like James Bond in this shit.
John Wick in this shit.
That's more like it.
James Bond is a little more graceful than what Daemon was doing, while John Wick is very much that. And there's arrows flying. He's killing because the crab feeder is clearly trying to keep his advantage of hiding his troops and only sending a few, until he realized, okay, like, I just need to overwhelm it. And he finally sends out all of his troops, and Daemon's surrounded. He's been shot by arrows. And then we see the trap is sprung, and Corlys comes with his troops, just looking magnificent in his full plate armor and his axe that is also a spear.
Hell yeah.
I love that. And at 6109, we see our girl, Seasmoke.
Is it a girl?
It's a girl.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay, I'll trust you on it.
We see Seasmoke appear and destroy the troops.
Yeah, this is Laenor's dragon.
Yes, Laenor's
he
dragon.
emerges riding a white dragon.
So Seasmoke is blue, white, and has salmon colors, which we'll break more down into it.
Yeah,
but,
that's at the end.
Yes, but I have a lot to say on that. But clearly is just, again, I want to point out the Valyrian army is wearing full plate armor while the crab feeder's army is wearing leather armor, which if you have troops in full plate versus troops in leather armor, it's just not going to go well. And the trap is sprung. Corlys comes in, the troops are getting annihilated by the dragon with dragon fire, and Daemon goes running into the caves to get the crab feeder, which I want to point out something that's hinted at in A Game of Thrones throughout the series, more so in the books, not as much in the show, but there's two types of leaders that you see in A Game of Thrones. You get the Daemons or the Corlyses that are very esque to Jaime Lannister, where they're the people that they're on the front line. They're going in there and they are, even though they come up with the strategy, they direct it all.
They have the capacity to inspire.
They have the capacity to inspire, and they're there and they're actually doing it. But then you have other leaders like Tywin or Stannis. They're more who are going to be on the back line and being more of like, okay, we need to direct our troops here, okay? Just being the tactician rather than the warrior. And you get the sense that the crab feeder is more of that, which I know a lot of people were like, we wanted to see an epic fight between the crab feeder and Daemon. Like, it wasn't going to be an epic fight.
Well, listen to this. We get more like close-ups of the guy in this episode. He has grayscale.
Here's the thing. Does he actually have grayscale, or is that
it's not confirmed, but if not grayscale, like, he has problems.
He has late-stage skin cancer.
Yeah, that's like best case scenario. He is not in fighting condition.
No.
He is in hammering already wounded and bound enemy soldiers to a wooden stake condition. And that's about the extent of it.
The only reason I push back on him having grayscale is Daemon clearly is pulling his body with an uncovered hand.
That's a fair point.
And grayscale is very contagious. I don't think that he would have been doing that if it was grayscale. Like, that's just my opinion there. But he comes out the war is won, and at that moment is one of those scenes where I was saying, like, okay, like Matt Smith, like when he comes out and he's covered in gore, like he looks ugly. Like that's one of those points where he does. Well,
it echoes the thing that Rhaenyra went through with the boar.
Yes, and that's what the showrunners said, that he had a rebirth. Like he was coming over there, and he was literally going into this situation to die. Daemon probably thought he was going to die, but he was.
And it has the energy of a suicide run.
Yes,
like you see it in his face, and there were, like, I think part of the reaction to this episode was like, well, that made no sense. But I think the emotion of this entire battle still really plays.
Yes, Daemon, and even though Daemon's very much not his brother in the sense of fate and prophecy, you get the feeling that there was almost a divine protection that was going over Daemon. Yes, Daemon was very much fighting and like doing a lot there, but
at the same time, in his charge, he was bringing that dragon energy we're always trying to nail down.
He's got the dragon energy.
That's when I'm talking about it. That's what I'm talking about.
And the day is won. The crab feeder is killed, completely cut in half.
Having never uttered a word of dialogue, I maybe I'm wrong about that, but
I don't think he does. But that's how the episode ends. Is there anything else that you want to highlight?
Actually, on what I just said there, that's one of my favorite things about how this whole final section plays out, is that it is played entirely wordlessly by Matt Smith.
Yes.
Which I'm kind of a sucker for. He's not obvious about it. And I mean, it's a big moment when he's like wailing on the messenger there.
Yes.
But it does just give that added sense of like he is kind of overcome by this moment and then resigned to seeing out this suicide run.
It almost, like, I'm sure there was a conversation had, but you get the sense that he almost, like, it tries to relay that it was almost his idea to go out there and do it. Like it's not something that it doesn't show the scene where they talk about the plan or anything.
Yeah, it's almost played like he just did it. That's a bit too much of a logic jump for that. Like the whole force was just ready to meet him there.
Yes, I know that that's not the fact, but I like that it ensues that.
Yeah, how it sort of presents that in how the thing plays out to us, the audience.
But anything else that you want to cover about that scene or the episode in general?
Pretty good.
The
battle sequence I don't think is anything mind-blowing, anything super special, but it's solid. And I'd say pretty much the same for the episode overall. How'd you feel about it?
I'd say about the same. Like it
to me, it's like a base hit.
It's I mean, it's definitely not the best episode we've seen so far, but there's things that I really like about the episode. I really like all the symbolism. Again, I'm a sucker for symbolism that's in the show. And I think, again, I really feel like a lot of these episodes are just preparing us for what's going to be coming later on. It's very much a foundation episode. But one of my favorite things about this is we get to see my favorite dragon visually in this episode.
Really?
If we want to go into it, I personally love the aesthetic of Seasmoke. I think Seasmoke is like a beautiful, beautiful dragon with the blue, the white, and then the salmon color on like the scale, like
nice accents.
And it while Caraxes and oh my gosh, Cyrax, they don't really look like Drogon and the other dragons in a Game of Thrones. Like this dragon very much looks like the dragons in a Game of Thrones.
Absolutely. So I have a source on this.
Okay.
And I actually, because I did just double check it, so I'm going to challenge your source on that. Because everything I'm seeing indicates it's a male dragon. Not that
really?
It totally matters, but that I would like to know if I'm wrong there.
I will go online to where I saw, but I mean, you're right. It doesn't really matter. But I also, if it is a male, I feel dumb because I was like, oh no, it's definitely. I checked.
It's all good. But there's actually a quote from Miguel Sapochnik. Let me give that another try. Miguel Sapochnik.
Okay.
Who I'm going to look up what his actual credit is in one moment. I apologize for not doing this before. He directed 3 of the episodes. And he's a director, producer. He's one of the big wigs behind the series.
Yeah.
But he has a quote because he was involved in the design of the dragons for House of the Dragon, because it's true. You do get a lot more variety in this series than you do in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And that does track with it being because all of the dragons that we see in Game of Thrones are related.
Yes.
They're of the same like breed, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So the quote is, again, this is from Miguel Sapochnik. I came up with the idea that there were 3 types of dragons. There's the dragons that are dinosaur-like. They have a big bridge on their nose. There are the dragons that are canine, which usually have the convex feel to them. They feel wolf-like. And then there's the dragons that are like horses, which are somewhere in between. So I've got a wolf skull, a horse skull, and a T-Rex skull, and designed the same dragon on top of each of them to see how the skull changed the features of the dragon. Now, with this in mind, to me, this one, Seasmoke, is clearly one of the T-Rexes.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have one of each so far in the series. And you look at pictures of Cyrax, and Cyrax looks badass, but with this in mind, you can see it being modeled after more of a horse.
Yes.
Which contributes to that, by dragon standards, Cyrax reading more docile,
yes.
like softer features. But on the other hand of this, the other side of the spectrum, we have Caraxes, who is, to me, clearly the wolf design.
Yes.
And that, I think, adds to its sort of like sinister, wicked aura.
Yes. I do want to point out, like, you can definitely tell that Seasmoke, like, and I love that. I love that we were able to get that, and we will have to, like, definitely when we see new dragons pop up, try to be like, oh, is that the horse? Is that the wolf? Is that
For sure.
the T-Rex? But you can definitely tell that Seasmoke is a younger dragon just on the size of the dragon. But unlike Cyrax, Seasmoke is hardened by war. Like Cyrax is not
Sure.
like
Sure.
Seasmoke is getting that on-hand work experience.
Yeah, on the job.
On the job.
Well, even just in its maneuvering in the battle, which we haven't seen Cyrax in a proper battle, but I find it hard to believe that she would have the moves, the nimbleness in the air that's displayed in this episode.
And I don't believe that we're really going to be seeing, like, Rhaenyra is not going to really be in a situation to have that. And it's not a dig at her by any means, but she's not going off to war, which means Cyrax is not going to be going off to war, while Seasmoke is getting that on the hand, on the job experience. And
also Seasmoke's coloring, which I do love. I of the 3 dragons we've seen so far, Caraxes is my favorite design.
Fair.
Although like excellent work all around. I love that they're differentiating the looks between dragons.
Yeah.
But Seasmoke's coloring is just excellent,
Yes.
especially against Laenor's hair.
Yeah. Which may or may not have had influence on the color.
Oh yeah, see, absolutely, and I am totally cool with it.
I am too.
It's like, yeah, maybe it's not practical, like it's not accurate, real to life, but this is a fantasy show about dragons.
Yes.
Like I can totally suspend my disbelief that it just so happens that every dragon like perfectly matches the aesthetic of their rider.
Hey, some match the aesthetic, some match the personality, some just. But so far out of the 3, Seasmoke is my personal favorite. I do not fault you for saying Caraxes, because Caraxes is amazing, but just based off everything that we have, Seasmoke is the aesthetic, the coloring, like
A fair take.
Like that's my go-to.
Also, my last note that I have there is that Seasmoke seems to contain a lot of fire within them. Yeah, it's a lot of fire expelled in a very short amount of time. So I don't know how that works for the dragons. I don't know what organ within them produces that, and if Seasmoke's is indeed like enlarged in some way. Well, but that was my last note.
Seasmoke has the shorter neck than Caraxes. Like Caraxes definitely has like the very long neck. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
It's like it just needs that extra fire to get started. It's like that loss of each burst.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the kind of detail you can expect here on Big Flying Lizards.
Big Liz Pod.
We break it down.
Big Liz Pod.
But that's all I have for this episode.
Now, I feel like we really broke down this episode. I definitely just reiterate, think you agree, solid episode, not their best work. Probably, I don't want to say their worst episode because it's not a bad episode, but definitely the weakest episode so far.
Slowing down a bit, but we're dealing with a pretty strong curve.
Yes. But I still enjoyed it. Can't wait to do the next episode 4 for next week. But I really enjoyed it. And if you guys want to continue to see what we're doing, please like and subscribe this video. If you can find this podcast on Spotify or other locations, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you can, please follow, download, like and subscribe, share it with a friend.
Whatever it is, because it's different on every platform, but I'll remind you all that we are a very new show.
Yes.
And that means that any engagement that you're willing to offer at all it can go a really long way.
Yes.
So What'd you think of the episode? Let us know. We are on most social media platforms.
Yeah.
At Big Liz Pod.
At Big Liz Pod. Please give us a follow. Just follow us. See what we're doing. We'll be getting content out there. Get you some clips. You can share around.
And if you need a prompt, weigh in on of the 3 dragons so far. Who's your pick?
Yeah, comment below which one of your 3 the dragons is your favorite. But this is Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie podcast. I'm Bryce Wilson,
And I'm Austin Snyder.
and we appreciate you guys joining us. And take it easy, y'all.
See you next week.
Bye.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.